I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. What I'm about to tell you will shock you, but I promise it's worth hearing every single word. My son's bride publicly humiliated me at their wedding reception, calling me low-class trash in front of 150 guests. She had no idea I'd spent 6 weeks uncovering the truth about her wealthy California family. They were all paid actors, every single one of them. And when I exposed her lies in front of everyone, pills scattered across the wedding table, the FBI got involved, and my son walked away from the altar. But that was just the beginning of how one mother's love saved her son from the biggest fraud I've ever witnessed. My name is Barbara Hayes. I'm 51 years old, and I've been sober for 12 years. Today, I run 8 recovery centers across Arizona worth $22 million. But 12 years ago, I was living in my car, stealing pills from gas station bathrooms, and praying my son wouldn't find me passed out in a parking lot again. Recovery gave me back my life. It gave me back my dignity. And most importantly, it gave me back my son, Dylan. Dylan is 28 now, 5 years sober himself, working as an engineer at a firm in Phoenix. He's the reason I fought so hard to get clean. He's the reason I built everything I have. And 6 months ago, when he told me he was getting married, I cried tears of joy. "Mom," he said over our usual Sunday phone call, "I met someone. Her name is Veronica Sterling, and I think she might be the one. The one." My heart swelled. After everything we'd been through, the addiction, the poverty, the shame, my boy had found happiness. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, staring out the window of my office at New Hope Recovery Center in Scottsdale. Below me, clients walked across the courtyard toward group therapy. Real people fighting real battles. "When do I get to meet her?" There was a pause. Just a small one, but I noticed it. "Actually, I was thinking maybe this Friday I'm making dinner at my place. Nothing fancy, just, casual." "I'd love that," I said. "Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself, Mom. That's all we need." But the way he said it, nervous, almost apologetic, made something flutter in my stomach. Something I couldn't quite name yet. I showed up at Dylan's apartment that Friday evening with a bouquet of sunflowers and my homemade lasagna, the kind with 3 types of cheese and homemade marinara sauce that Dylan used to beg me to make when he was little. Before the addiction. Before everything fell apart. The building was nice, one of those modern complexes in central Phoenix with a pool and a gym. Dylan had done well for himself. I was so proud. I knocked on the door of apartment 3C, smoothing down my blouse. I dressed carefully, clean jeans, a nice button-down shirt, and navy blue comfortable flats. Nothing fancy, but nothing to be ashamed of either. The door opened. The woman standing there was stunning. Mid-20s, with long dark hair that fell in perfect waves over her shoulders, flawless makeup, and a dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine spread. "Oh," she said, looking me up and down. Her eyes lingered on my bouquet, then my casserole dish, then my outfit. Her expression was polite, but something cold flickered behind her eyes. "You must be Barbara." "I am," I said, smiling warmly and extending the flowers. "You must be Veronica. It's so wonderful to finally—" "Dylan didn't mention you were coming," she said, not taking the bouquet. Her hands stayed at her sides. "I'm actually allergic to flowers." I stood there, arm outstretched, feeling suddenly foolish. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Mom." Dylan appeared behind Veronica, his face flushed. He was wearing a nice shirt, hair freshly combed. He looked nervous. "Hey, come in, come in." He practically pulled me inside, taking the flowers and casserole from my hands. "These are beautiful, Mom. Thank you." "I thought I told you I'm allergic to lilies," Veronica said to Dylan, her voice sharp. "These are sunflowers," I said gently, "but I can take them home if—" No, it's fine," Dylan said quickly, setting them on the kitchen counter. "We'll put them over here. Mom, this is Veronica. Veronica, this is my mother." Veronica extended her hand and I shook it. Her grip was limp, her fingers cold. "Dylan's told me so much about you," she said. The smile on her face didn't reach her eyes. "About your situation." "My situation?" I asked. "Your recovery," she said, as if the word tasted sour in her mouth. "He mentioned you work in counseling." "I run recovery centers," I corrected gently. 8 of them across Arizona, New Hope Recovery Centers. Maybe you've heard of us." "Oh," she blinked. "That's important work." The way she said important, like she was talking about someone who cleaned sewers or collected trash, made my stomach tighten. But I kept smiling. It is important, I agreed. We help people rebuild their lives after addiction. People like me and Dylan. Dylan shifted uncomfortably. Mom built the business from nothing. It's really impressive. I'm sure it is, Veronica said, already turning away. Dylan, didn't you say the lasagna's getting cold? We sat down at Dylan's small dining table and I tried to make conversation. I asked Veronica about her work, her family, how she and Dylan met. I work for a foundation, she said, cutting her lasagna into tiny, precise pieces. The Sterling Foundation. We fund arts and education initiatives across California. That's wonderful, I said. What kind of education programs? Various ones. She took a delicate bite. We prefer to keep our philanthropy private. My family doesn't believe in broadcasting our charitable work. Of course, I said. And your family there in California? Northern California, yes. Real estate development primarily. My father's company is very selective about their clients. Boutique, you could say. What's the company called? I asked, genuinely curious. There was the smallest pause. Sterling Properties. They've been in business for 23 years. 23 years specifically, I asked. That's a precise number. My father is meticulous about dates, she said coolly. Then she turned to Dylan. Honey, could you get me more water? As Dylan got up to refill her glass, I noticed something. Veronica's hands were trembling slightly. She kept touching her nose, quick little gestures like she was brushing away an invisible itch. And when she thought I wasn't looking, her eyes darted toward her purse, which sat on the side table by the door. I'd seen those signs before. I'd lived those signs. But I pushed the thought away. I was being paranoid, projecting my own past onto someone I'd just met. Dinner continued awkwardly. Every question I asked was met with vague answers or redirected topics. Every attempt at warmth was met with polite coldness. And Dylan, my sweet, sensitive Dylan, seemed caught in the middle, growing more uncomfortable with each passing minute. Finally, Veronica excused herself to the bathroom. The moment she left, Dylan leaned across the table. Mom, please, he said quietly. You're interrogating her. I'm just trying to get to know her, I said. She's going to be my daughter-in-law. She's just private. Her family's like that. Old money, you know. They don't really talk about themselves much. Dylan, please, Mom, just try to be nice to her. The words stung. Try to be nice to her, as if I'd been anything but welcoming. When Veronica returned from the bathroom, I noticed her pupils were slightly dilated. Her movements were more animated, her speech a little faster. She'd gone in with her clutch purse and came back without it. I recognized that, too. But I said nothing. I finished my lasagna, made polite small talk for another 30 minutes, and then made my excuses to leave. Thank you for having me, I said at the door. It was lovely to meet you, Veronica. Likewise, she said, but she was already looking at her phone. Dylan walked me to my car. She's great, right? He asked, hopeful, desperate. She's interesting, I said carefully. How long have you two been dating? 6 months. I know it seems fast, but Mom, I really think she's the one. I hugged my son tight. As long as you're happy, sweetheart. But as I drove home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. Dylan and I had a tradition. Every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock he called me. We'd talk for an hour about his week, his job, his life. We'd talk about recovery, about the meetings he attended, about the struggles and victories of staying clean. Those calls were sacred to me. They were proof that we'd survived, that we'd made it to the other side. The Sunday after I met Veronica, Dylan didn't call. I waited until 2 in the afternoon staring at my phone on my desk at the recovery center. Outside my window, clients moved between buildings. Sarah Williams, my business partner and the medical director, knocked and poked her head in. You okay? She asked. You've been staring at that phone for an hour. Dylan didn't call, I said. Sarah frowned. She knew about our Sunday tradition. Did you try calling him? I nodded. Straight to voicemail. He's probably just busy, Sarah said, but she didn't sound convinced. Finally, at 2:30, I called again. This time, Dylan answered. Hey, Mom. He sounded distracted. I could hear voices in the background laughter. Hi, sweetheart. I missed your call this morning. Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Veronica and I had brunch with some of her friends. I forgot to call. You forgot. In 5 years of recovery through every struggle and celebration, you never forgot. That's okay, I said, trying to keep my voice light. How was brunch? Good. Her friends they're interesting people. I'd love to meet them sometime. Yeah, maybe. They're pretty busy. Veronica's crowd is kind of exclusive, you know. Exclusive, I repeated. Yeah, they come from different backgrounds. Veronica says they might not really relate to... He stopped himself. Relate to what, Dylan? Nothing. Never mind. But I knew what he meant. They might not relate to a former addict, to someone who used to be trailer trash, to his mother. Dylan, is everything okay? You sound different. I'm fine, Mom. Everything's great. Hey, I've been meaning to ask, could you maybe not bring up the recovery stuff so much around Veronica? My heart sank. The recovery stuff. She just thinks it's kind of heavy. Her family's more private about personal issues. They don't really talk about that kind of thing. Dylan, recovery is my life. It's our story. It's who we are. I know, Mom. I'm not asking you to hide it completely. Just, could you maybe tone it down a little? Not make it the focus of every conversation. I looked out my window at the recovery center I'd built from nothing, at the lives we saved every single day, at the proof that recovery was possible, that redemption was real. I'll try, I heard myself say. We talked for 5 more minutes, but the easy warmth between us was gone. When we hung up, I sat in my office and cried. Sarah found me 20 minutes later, mascara streaking down my face. What happened? She asked, closing the door behind her. I think I'm losing my son, I said. A month after I first met Veronica, the 3 of us met for dinner at an upscale restaurant in Scottsdale. Veronica had chosen the place some trendy fusion spot where the portions were tiny and the prices astronomical. I dressed carefully again. A nice dress this time, low heels, my good jewelry. I wanted to show Veronica that I could fit into her world. That I wasn't just some recovering addict who didn't know how to act in polite society. Pathetic, I know. But I loved my son, and I wanted his future wife to accept me. Veronica was already there when I arrived, looking immaculate in a designer dress. Dylan stood to hug me, but Veronica stayed seated, offering only a cool nod. Barbara, you look nice. Thank you, I said, sitting down. This place is beautiful. Thank you for choosing it. Well, I wanted somewhere appropriate, she said, and there was that edge again. That subtle implication that my choices wouldn't have been suitable. We ordered drinks, wine for them, sparkling water for me, and I tried once more to connect with this woman who was about to become family. Dylan tells me your family's in Northern California, I said. What part? I have a client whose daughter lives in Sacramento. Oh, various places, Veronica said vaguely. We have properties in several areas. Properties plural. Your family must be in quite extensive real estate development. My father's company is boutique, she said as if I hadn't heard this line before. Very selective clients. Sterling Properties, right? What kind of projects do they focus on? Commercial, residential? Both, mostly mixed-use developments. That's fascinating. What was their most recent project? She took a long sip of her wine. They just closed on a development in Palo Alto. Palo Alto, I said. My friend's husband works for the planning commission there. Small world. What's the property address? Her jaw tightened. It's confidential during the closing period. But you said they just closed the final closing period, she corrected quickly. Very hush-hush until all the paperwork is filed. Of course, I said, but something nagged at me. I pulled out my phone. Do you mind if I look up Sterling Properties? I'm curious to see what... We don't have a website, Veronica said sharply. My father believes in discretion, referral only. No website at all. In 2024, that's unusual for a real estate development company. We're old school, she said, her voice cooling several degrees. Not everyone needs to broadcast their business online. Dylan shifted uncomfortably. Mom, maybe we could talk about something else. I'm just interested in Veronica's family, I said. You're going to be my daughter-in-law. I want to know more about where you come from. Well, perhaps if you'd been more curious 6 months ago instead of interrogating me now, we'd have a better relationship, Veronica snapped. The table went silent. I'm not interrogating, I said quietly. I'm asking normal questions that people ask when they're getting to know each other. Normal people don't ask for property addresses and business websites, Veronica said. Normal people accept that some families value privacy. And some families, I said, my voice still calm. Value transparency. Are you implying something? Veronica's eyes flashed. I'm not implying anything. I'm simply trying to understand why basic questions about your family make you so defensive. I'm not defensive. I'm protective. There's a difference. Dylan put his hand on Veronica's arm. Honey, please. Can we just have a nice dinner? But Veronica was on a roll now. You know what I think, Barbara? I think you're threatened by me, by my family, by the fact that we come from a different world than you do. A different world, I repeated. Yes, a world of education, stability, and success. A world where people don't have to recover from anything because they never fell apart in the first place. My hands tightened on my napkin under the table. Everyone has struggles, Veronica. Just because your family doesn't talk about them doesn't mean they don't exist. My family doesn't have the kind of struggles you had, she said coldly. We don't have addiction, poverty, or instability. We have standards. We have class. Dylan stood up. That's enough. Veronica apologized to my mother, right now. For what? For speaking the truth. For being cruel. Dylan said, his voice shaking. Mom has been nothing but kind to you, and you've treated her like she's beneath you since day one. Veronica's face softened. She reached for Dylan's hand. Honey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I just get defensive when I feel like someone's attacking my family. I wasn't attacking, I said. I was asking questions. Suspicious questions, Veronica said. You've been doubting me from the beginning. And she was right. I had been. The dinner ended awkwardly with forced small talk and long silences. When we said goodbye in the parking lot, Dylan hugged me tight. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. She's just stressed about the wedding planning. Dylan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay? Have you ever met her family in person? He pulled back, frowning. Not yet. They're flying in for the wedding. The wedding, Dylan, that's 4 months away. Veronica says they're very busy, and they prefer to keep relationships separate until things are serious. Getting married is serious. I know. I'll meet them at the wedding. He saw my expression. Mom, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that in 6 months of dating, you haven't met a single member of her family. You haven't been to her hometown. You haven't seen where she grew up. Doesn't that seem strange to you? It seems private. Not everyone broadcasts their entire life. There's private and then there's secretive. Mom, Dylan's voice hardened. I love her. I'm marrying her. Can you please just support that? I looked at my son, my beautiful, trusting son, who'd fought so hard to build a good life, and I made a decision. Of course I support you, I said. I love you, Dylan. That will never change. But as I drove home that night, I also made another decision. I was going to find out the truth about Veronica Sterling. I sat in my home office that night, unable to sleep. My laptop glowed in the darkness as I typed into the search bar Sterling Properties, California. The results were disappointing. Dozens of companies with similar names, but none that matched Veronica's descriptions. No boutique firms serving selective clients. No recent developments in Palo Alto. Nothing. I tried Sterling Foundation, California. Generic results. Charity databases with no foundation matching the name. A few individuals named Sterling who ran foundations, but none connected to Northern California real estate. I searched for Veronica Sterling next. Her LinkedIn profile appeared, but it was sparse. No employment history beyond philanthropy consultant. Her Instagram showed recent photos, her and Dylan's scenic shots of Arizona, artfully filtered selfies, but nothing older than 8 months. No childhood photos, no family pictures, no evidence of a life before Dylan. Her Facebook account had been created 8 months ago. 8 months, right when she met Dylan. I opened a new document on my laptop and titled it redflags.doc. Then I started typing one. No website for Sterling Properties despite being in business 23 years, 2. No social media presence before 8 months ago, 3. No photos of family anywhere, 4. Extremely defensive about basic questions, 5. Dylan has never met her family, 6. Vague answers about everything, 7. Signs of possible substance use, dilated pupils, bathroom trips with purse-jittery behavior. I stared at that last item. Was I projecting seeing addiction where there was none because it was what I knew, or was I recognizing the signs because I'd lived them? My phone buzzed. A text from Dylan. Sorry about tonight. Love you, Mom. I texted back. Love you too, sweetheart. Always. Then I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Dr. Sarah Williams. Sarah, I need a favor, a discreet one. It's 11 at night, Barbara. This must be serious. It's about Dylan's fiancée. I need you to look into her background. There was a pause. What kind of background check are we talking about? You went to Stanford, right? You have connections in Northern California. Some, yes. Medical community professional networks. What are you looking for? I need to know if Sterling Properties is real, if the Sterling Foundation exists, if Veronica's family is who she says they are. Barbara, are you sure about this? These things can get messy. I need to know if my son is safe. Sarah sighed. Okay, send me everything you have. I'll make some calls. The second call was to Frank Davis, a private investigator who'd helped me 2 years ago when we had theft issues at one of the recovery centers. Frank, it's Barbara Hayes. Barbara, long time. What can I do for you? I need a background check. Very quiet, very thorough. Who are we looking at? My son's fiancée. Frank was quiet for a moment. Barbara, you sure about this? Once you open this door, you can't close it. And sometimes what you find, it changes everything. I know, I said, but I have to know. All right, what's her name? Veronica Sterling. Or at least that's what she calls herself. Sterling, huh? That's a suspicious name. Sounds made up. That's what I thought. Send me everything you've got, social media profiles, any documents, photos, whatever you have. I'll start digging tomorrow. After I hung up, I called one more person. My sponsor, Janet. Janet had been my lifeline through early recovery. A 68-year-old woman with 30 years sober, she'd seen it all and heard it all. Nothing shocked her. Janet, I'm sorry to call so late. Barbara, what's wrong? Your voice sounds off. I think my son is making a mistake. I think his fiancée is lying about who she is. What does your gut tell you? That something's very wrong. Then your gut is probably right. In recovery, we learn to trust our instincts. They're usually trying to protect us. But what if I'm wrong? What if I'm just being a paranoid mother who can't let go? Are you investigating because you don't trust him or because you don't trust her? Her, definitely her. Then listen to that. But Barbara, be prepared. Sometimes the truth is uglier than the lie. I hung up and sat in the darkness of my office, staring at the document on my screen. Red flags. So many red flags. But I had no proof. Just suspicions and gut feelings, and the nagging sense that the woman who was about to become my daughter-in-law was hiding something big. I just didn't know how big yet. 4 months before the wedding, Veronica's family finally made their appearance. The engagement party was held at an upscale venue in Phoenix, all white tablecloths and crystal chandeliers and champagne towers. Veronica had planned everything herself, she said. Her family was flying in just for the evening, then flying back to California in the morning. They're so busy, she explained to the gathered guests. But they wouldn't miss celebrating with us. I arrived early wearing my best dress, a simple navy sheath that I'd bought specifically for this occasion. I wanted to make a good impression. Despite my suspicions, despite the investigation I'd quietly set in motion, I still hoped I was wrong. I hoped Veronica's family would walk through that door and prove to be exactly who she claimed they were. Wealthy, accomplished, loving people who'd raised a difficult woman, but fundamentally good one. The Sterling family arrived at 7 o'clock. First came a distinguished man in his 60s, silver hair, perfectly styled, expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. You must be Barbara, he said, extending his hand. Richard Sterling, Veronica's father. It's wonderful to finally meet you. Likewise, I said, shaking his hand. Veronica speaks so highly of your family. And we've heard about your remarkable journey, he said. There was the slightest pause before remarkable, like he'd considered other words first. My recovery, I said, not making it easy for him. Yes, very inspiring. Inspiring, the word people used when they meant strange, uncomfortable something they didn't want to discuss. Thank you, I said. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, and the thing I'm most proud of. Of course, of course. He looked around the room, clearly wanting to end the conversation. Now where's that grandson of mine? I need to congratulate him properly. Dylan wasn't his grandson. He would be his son-in-law. But I didn't correct him. Next came a woman in her late 50s, elegant in a way that seemed calculated, expensive jewelry dripping from her neck and wrists. Designer dress that probably cost more than my car payment. Barbara, she said, air-kissing near my cheek without actually making contact. I'm Margaret Sterling, Veronica's mother. That's a lovely dress. The compliment felt like an insult somehow, like she was surprised I owned anything appropriate. Thank you, I said. And your necklace is beautiful. Is that Tiffany? Her hand flew to her throat. Oh no, this is vintage, European. It's been in the family for generations. But I'd been looking at jewelry all week preparing for this moment. I'd studied vintage pieces and modern designs, and I knew what I was looking at. Really, I said, leaning closer. May I love vintage jewelry. She couldn't refuse without being rude, so she stood still while I examined the necklace. Right there on the clasp was a small hallmark, Tiffany & Company 2024 collection. It's stunning, I said, straightening up. Your family has exquisite taste. Margaret's smile was tight. Thank you. Over the next hour, I met the rest of the Sterling family. Uncle James, who claimed to be a wine collector but pronounced Bordeaux wrong. Aunt Patricia, who said she summered in the Hamptons but didn't know the difference between Southampton and East Hampton when I asked. Aunt Linda, who wore designer labels but seemed uncomfortable in them, like she wasn't used to expensive clothes. And then there was the cousin, a young man named Robert, who claimed to have gone to Yale but couldn't name a single residential college when I casually asked about his time there. I watched them throughout the evening, and I noticed things. They didn't interact naturally. There was no family shorthand, no inside jokes, no comfortable silences that come from years of knowing each other. They moved around the room like actors hitting their marks, precise, careful, rehearsed. They kept checking their phones. Not occasionally the way busy people do, but constantly, and always with quick glances at each other afterward like they were coordinating. None of them knew Dylan's friends or colleagues. They asked the same questions multiple times. And what do you do? How did you meet Dylan? Like they'd never been briefed on the details. And strangest of all, when I suggested taking a family photo, both families together, they all found excuses. Oh, I'm not photogenic, Margaret said. I'd rather live in the moment than through a lens, Richard added. We don't really do photos, Veronica said firmly. It's a family thing, very old school. I smiled and nodded, but in my mind I was adding to my list 8. Family refuses to be photographed 9. No natural interaction between family members 10. Constant phone checking and coordination 11. Don't know basic details about Dylan, and then late in the evening I overheard something. I'd gone to the bathroom, and on my way back I heard Veronica's voice coming from around the corner. She was on the phone, her back to me. Mother, I know it's stressful. Yes, I've confirmed the seating chart. Don't worry, I've put her at table 12. In the back, near the service entrance. She won't be a problem. After tomorrow, we barely have to see her again. My heart sank. Table 12. Near the service entrance. That's where she'd put me, where she thought I belonged. I walked back to the party with my head held high, but inside I was breaking and making a plan. 2 weeks after the engagement party, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. Barbara, it's Sarah. We need to talk. I sat up in bed, instantly awake. What did you find? Not over the phone. Can you meet me at the coffee shop near your office an hour? I'll be there in 30 minutes. I threw on clothes and drove to Scottsdale, my heart pounding the entire way. Sarah was already there, sitting in a back corner booth with a folder in front of her. Her face was grim. Tell me, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. Sarah opened the folder. Barbara, I called everyone I know in Northern California. Medical professionals, business connections, people in the real estate community. And there's no Sterling properties matching Veronica's description. I found several companies with similar names, but none that fit. No boutique firm, no selective clients, no recent development in Palo Alto. My stomach dropped. You're sure? I had 3 different people check. Then I looked into the Sterling Foundation. She pulled out printed pages. This is their website. It was created 7 months ago. All the content is plagiarized from other charity websites. The photos are stock images. The testimonials are fake. She showed me side-by-side comparisons. The Sterling Foundation website next to 3 other charity sites highlighting identical paragraphs. What about the family? I asked. That's where it gets interesting. There is a Margaret Sterling in San Francisco who fits the general age description, but she's 78 and living in assisted care. Definitely not the woman at the party. So Veronica's lying about everything. It looks that way. But Barbara, there's more. I found something else. She pulled out another document. An obituary. Patricia Morrison, age 42, died of a heroin overdose in Dayton, Ohio, 16 years ago. She left behind one daughter, Veronica Morrison, age 10. I stared at the obituary, at the photo of a woman who looked hauntingly like Veronica, at the details of a life destroyed by addiction. Veronica Morrison, I whispered. Not Sterling. Sterling appears to be a name she took professionally. I found records she changed it legally 5 years ago. Her mother died of an overdose when she was 10, raised by her grandmother after that. Harriet Morrison. I found her too. She's in a nursing home in Dayton. I called and spoke to her. You what? I told her I was verifying information for a professional reference. She was not kind when talking about her granddaughter. Said Veronica had bad blood, that she was just like her mother, that she'd cut off contact 3 years ago. I felt tears prick my eyes. She lost her mother to addiction when she was just a child. Yes, and then she spent her teenage years with a grandmother who blamed her for her mother's disease. No wonder she hates me, I said softly. I represent everything she's terrified of becoming. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Barbara, this doesn't excuse what she's doing. Lying about her family creating a fake identity. I know, but at least now I understand why. My phone buzzed. A text from Frank Davis, need to see you, ASAP. Found something big. I have to go, I said, standing up. Thank you, Sarah, for everything. Barbara, what are you going to do? I looked down at the obituary of Patricia Morrison, at the little girl who'd lost her mother and never recovered. I'm going to save my son, I said. And if I can, I'm going to save her too. Frank Davis's office was in a strip mall in Tempe, the kind of place you'd walk past without noticing. Plain door frosted glass window with his name stenciled in black letters, Davis Investigations. I'd been here twice before, both times for business related to the recovery centers. This time was personal. Frank was waiting for me sitting behind a desk cluttered with folders and coffee cups. He was in his late 50s, former Phoenix PD with the tired eyes of a man who'd seen too much of humanity's dark side. Barbara, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Sit down. You're going to want to sit down for this. I sat, my purse clutched in my lap. What did you find? He opened a thick folder. Let's start with the basics. Veronica Morrison, and yes, that's her legal name, though she goes by Sterling professionally, is 26 years old. Born in Dayton, Ohio. Mother died of overdose when she was 10, raised by maternal grandmother until age 18. I know that part, I said. My partner found the obituary. Did she find this? He slid a photo across the desk. It was a mugshot. Veronica, age 19, looking young and terrified. The placard read, Morrison Veronica J., possession of controlled substance, Dayton PD. My heart sank. When was this? 7 years ago. She was arrested with 30 OxyContin pills that weren't prescribed to her. First offense got probation and mandatory counseling. Charges were eventually expunged. So she has a history. Had, Frank corrected. She completed her probation, stayed clean according to the records. Moved to Phoenix 5 years ago, changed her name, started over. Which honestly is admirable. People deserve second chances. But she's not clean anymore, Barbara. Not even close. He pulled out another stack of papers. These are pharmacy records from the past 8 months. 4 different doctors, 7 different pharmacies. He spread them across the desk like a dealer laying out cards. Each page showed prescriptions, dates, doctor names, medication names, quantities. Dr. Martinez at Phoenix Pain Management, Frank read. 60 OxyContin prescribed for chronic back pain from a car accident that, according to medical records, never happened. Dr. Stevens at Scottsdale Family Medicine, 40 Percocet prescribed for dental surgery recovery. Her dentist has no record of any surgery. Dr. Wilson at Mesa Medical Center, 90 Adderall prescribed for adult ADHD. She's been filling this prescription at 3 different pharmacies in the same week. Dr. Thompson at Desert Valley Medical, 30 Xanax for anxiety. Filled at a pharmacy in Glendale on the same day she filled the Adderall in Tempe. I stared at the papers, my hands shaking. How many total? In the past 2 months alone, 180 pills. That's not medication, Barbara. That's abuse. That's addiction. I closed my eyes. The signs had been there all along. The bathroom trips with her purse, the dilated pupils, the jittery behavior followed by sudden calmness, the defensiveness, the mood swings, the late-night texts to Dylan that kept him up worrying. I'd seen it because I'd lived it. There's more, Frank said quietly. The financial side. What financial side? He pulled out bank statements, credit reports, loan applications. Veronica has no legitimate employment history, no tax returns showing income for the past 3 years. She's living on credit card advances and personal loans. How is that possible? Fraudulent financial statements. She's been claiming income from the Sterling Foundation, which doesn't exist, and using fake pay stubs to secure loans. We're talking about $200,000 in debt across 15 different accounts. My head spun. 200,000, and that's just what I could find easily. There's probably more. She's been living a fantasy life, Barbara. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, first-class everything. All on borrowed money. What about the wedding? Dylan said her family is paying for it. Frank's expression darkened. The wedding is being paid for with a loan she took out in her grandmother's name. Identity theft, basically. The old woman in the nursing home has no idea her credit has been destroyed. I felt sick. Her own grandmother. The grandmother who told her she had bad blood and would end up like her mother. I'm not excusing it, but I understand it. Hurt people hurt people. Does Dylan know any of this? I doubt it. She's been very careful. Separate bank accounts, separate credit cards. He probably thinks she's financially stable. I looked at all the evidence spread across Frank's desk. The mugshot, the prescription records, the fraudulent loan applications. A life built on lies and pills and stolen money. Frank, if she's this deep in fraud, what are the legal consequences? He leaned back in his chair. Identity theft is a Class 4 felony in Arizona. Could be 3 years in prison. The prescription fraud doctor shopping forging medical conditions, that's multiple felonies. And if the feds get involved because she's crossed state lines with the financial fraud, the FBI. Possibly. I forwarded what I found to a contact at the state pharmacy board. They've been tracking unusual prescription patterns, and Veronica's name flagged their system 3 weeks ago. They're building a case. 3 weeks ago, they've known for 3 weeks. They were waiting to see if she'd stop on her own or escalate. She's escalated. Last week, she tried to fill prescriptions at 4 different pharmacies in 1 day. They're preparing to refer the case to law enforcement. I stood up, pacing the small office. The wedding is in 10 days, Frank. 10 days. If I tell Dylan all of this now, he needs to know Barbara. You can't let him marry someone who's actively committing felonies. I know, but if I tell him, I stopped, my voice breaking. He'll think I'm trying to sabotage his happiness. He'll think I can't accept that he's found someone. Or he'll thank you for saving him from making the biggest mistake of his life. I sank back into the chair. What about the family, the Sterlings, who came to the engagement party? Frank smiled grimly and pulled out one more set of papers. Save the best for last. Or the worst, depending on how you look at it. He handed me printouts from a website. Prestige Acting Solutions, a Los Angeles casting agency specializing in professional role-play services. What is this? It's where Veronica hired her family, all 6 of them, professional actors paid to portray wealthy relatives at social events. I stared at the headshots. There was Richard Sterling, real name Robert Patterson, character actor specializing in distinguished authority figures. Margaret Sterling, real name Linda Foster, known for playing elegant society matrons. The uncle, the aunts, the cousin, all actors. I found the contracts, Barbara. She's been paying them $1,500 per day each for 3 months of preparation and performance. 3 months. They've been studying their roles, memorizing backstories, practicing interactions, learning to play a wealthy California family. It's like they're preparing for a movie, except the movie is Dylan's life. I did the math in my head. 6 actors, $1,500 per day, 3 months of occasional meetings and rehearsals, plus the full wedding weekend. That's at least $75,000. Closer to $90,000 when you include the wedding weekend, all paid through a shell company called S. Morrison Financial Services. Let me guess, that's not real either. Oh, it's real in the sense that it exists on paper. But it has no employees, no physical address, no legitimate business activity. It's just a way to funnel money, move it around, hide where it's coming from, make it look legitimate for the loan applications. That's money laundering. Technically, yes, though proving it to that level might be difficult without a full forensic accounting. I sat in silence trying to process everything. Veronica wasn't just lying about her family. She wasn't just struggling with addiction. She was running a complex financial fraud while hiring actors to maintain an elaborate fiction. And my son had no idea. "Frank, can you get me copies of everything? All of it. The prescriptions, the bank records, the actor contracts, everything. Already made you a set." He handed me a thick folder. "But Barbara, what are you planning to do with this?" I looked down at the folder in my hands, at the evidence of a life unraveling, a woman drowning, a fraud spiraling out of control. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "But I have 10 days to figure it out." I drove home with Frank's folder on the passenger seat. Every time I stopped at a red light, I found myself staring at it. Evidence, proof, the truth. But what was I supposed to do with the truth? The obvious answer: tell Dylan immediately. Show him everything. Stop the wedding before it was too late. But another part of me, the part that had been through addiction, that understood the disease, that knew how rock bottom felt, that part hesitated. Veronica was sick. She was an addict just like I had been, just like Dylan had been. She was lying and stealing and destroying her life because that's what addiction makes you do. It turns you into someone you don't recognize, someone who hurts the people around you because you're too busy drowning to notice anyone else exists. If I exposed her at the wedding in front of 150 people with actors fleeing and pills scattered and police potentially involved, that would destroy her. Completely and utterly destroy her. And maybe she deserved it. She was lying to my son, stealing from her grandmother, committing fraud. She'd called me low-class trash, told me I didn't belong in civilized society, seated me at table 12 near the service entrance. But did anyone deserve to have their rock bottom be that public, that humiliating? I thought about my own rock bottom. Waking up in my car in a Walmart parking lot covered in vomit, my son's voice on the phone begging me to come to his high school graduation. I'd missed it. Missed one of the most important days of his life because I was too high to function. That moment, that rock bottom, had happened in private. Dylan found me later, helped me into rehab, stood by me while I got clean. If he'd exposed me publicly, shamed me in front of everyone I knew, would I have had the strength to recover? Or would the humiliation have pushed me deeper into using? I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a long time, staring at my house. My phone buzzed. A text from Dylan. "Hey Mom, final dress fitting tomorrow. Veronica wants to know if you'd like to come. Might be a good bonding opportunity." I stared at the text. Veronica wanted me at her dress fitting. The woman who hated me wanted me there for one of the most intimate pre-wedding moments. Unless she wanted to keep me close. Keep an eye on me. Make sure I wasn't causing problems. I texted back, "I'd love to come. Thank you for including me." Then I called Janet, my sponsor. "I need help," I said when she answered. "I need to figure out the right thing to do and I can't see it clearly anymore." "Tell me everything," Janet said. So I did. I told her about Veronica's mother dying of an overdose, about the grandmother who called her bad blood, about the addiction and the fraud and the hired actors. I told her about Dylan's happiness and Veronica's cruelty and my own confusion about what justice should look like. When I finished, Janet was quiet for a long moment. "What does your program tell you?" she asked finally. "The 9th step, making amends, repairing harm done." "And what harm has Veronica done?" "She's lying to Dylan, stealing from her grandmother, committing fraud. And if you expose her publicly, what harm will you do?" I closed my eyes. "I'll humiliate her, shame her, make her rock bottom as painful as possible." Is that justice or revenge? I don't know anymore. Barbara, I'm going to tell you something and I want you to really hear it. The difference between justice and revenge is this. Justice says you must face the consequences of your actions. Revenge says I want to watch you suffer. I don't want her to suffer. I just want Dylan safe. Then focus on that. Protecting Dylan doesn't require destroying Veronica. It just requires truth. But Janet, she's getting married in 10 days. If I tell him everything now, he'll be devastated. Better devastated for a few weeks than trapped in a fraudulent marriage for years. Or until she gets arrested and he's caught up in the legal consequences. You think I should tell him before the wedding? I think you should tell him as soon as possible. And then, Barbara, and this is important, you should offer to help Veronica get into treatment. Help her after everything she's done. Because of everything she's done. She's an addict in crisis. She needs recovery just like you did, just like Dylan did. Exposing her fraud and then offering her help, that's justice. That's how we break the cycle. I sat with that for a moment. What if Dylan hates me for ruining his wedding? What if he thanks you for saving his life? After I hung up with Janet, I sat in my car and made another call. To Sarah. I need you to do something for me, I said. Can you get in touch with Desert Haven Treatment Center? I want to reserve a bed for emergency admission. For who? For Veronica, in case she's willing to accept help after everything falls apart. Barbara, that's incredibly compassionate. No, I said. It's just the right thing to do. I remember what it was like to need help and be too ashamed to ask for it. If she's willing to get clean, I'm going to make sure she has somewhere to go. Okay, I'll call them first thing tomorrow. One more call. To Frank. Frank, I need you at the wedding, you and Sarah both, with all the evidence. You're going through with it. I'm going to tell Dylan tomorrow at the dress fitting. Private quiet, just the two of us. But if Veronica tries to go through with the wedding anyway, if she somehow convinces him to ignore the evidence, then yes, I'll expose it all publicly. That's playing with fire, Barbara. I know, but my son deserves to know the truth before he makes a lifetime commitment. And there, the bridal boutique was in Scottsdale, all white and cream and soft lighting designed to make every bride look like a princess. I arrived at 2 o'clock as requested, my stomach in knots. The plan had changed. I was going to try one more time to talk to Veronica directly, woman to woman, addict to addict. Give her a chance to come clean to Dylan herself before I did it for her. And if that didn't work, then I'd tell Dylan everything after the fitting. Veronica was already there when I arrived, standing on a platform in front of 3 mirrors wearing a wedding dress that probably cost more than my first car. She looked stunning. The dress was perfect fitted bodice, flowing skirt, delicate lace details. She looked like every bride's dream, except her hands were shaking as she adjusted the veil. Barbara, she said, her voice tight. You came? Of course. Thank you for inviting me. The boutique assistant fussed around Veronica, adjusting the hem pinning the bustle. Dylan was at work, Veronica explained. This was just us, the women. I watched her in the mirror. Even through the makeup, I could see the signs. Dark circles under her eyes, barely concealed by concealer. A tightness around her mouth. The way she kept touching her nose, that telltale gesture. The assistant stepped away to get more pins, leaving us alone. Veronica, I said quietly. Can we talk? Really talks about what? Her eyes met mine in the mirror, wary. About the fact that you're hurting. She laughed, but it was bitter. I'm getting married in 10 days. I'm not hurting. I'm happy. Are you? I stepped closer. Because from where I'm standing, you look like someone who's drowning and pretending they can swim. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Veronica, I know about your mother, Patricia Morrison. I know she died when you were 10. I know your grandmother raised you and told you that you had bad blood, that you'd end up just like her. Veronica's face went pale. How do you... I know about the arrest when you were 19, the OxyContin, the probation. That was expunged. That's sealed. I know about the 4 doctors you're seeing now. Dr. Martinez, Dr. Stevens, Dr. Wilson, Dr. Thompson. I know about the 180 pills you've picked up in the past 2 months. She stepped off the platform, her wedding dress rustling. You've been investigating me. I've been trying to protect my son. From what? From me? Her voice rose. I love Dylan. I would never hurt him. You're already hurting him. You're lying to him about everything, your family, your finances, your addiction. Veronica, you're sick. You need help. I'm fine. You're not fine. Your doctor shopping for pills just like your mother did. You're lying and stealing and destroying your credit just to maintain an image that isn't real. And if you don't stop, if you don't get help, you're going to end up exactly where your grandmother said you would, just like your mother. Tears streamed down Veronica's face, ruining her makeup. Don't you dare. Don't you dare compare me to her. I'm not comparing you to her. I'm trying to save you from her fate. You don't know anything about me or my life. I know more than you think. I pulled the folder from my purse, the one Frank had given me. I know your family at the engagement party were actors from Prestige Acting Solutions. I know Richard Sterling is really Robert Patterson, and Margaret Sterling is really Linda Foster. I know you've paid them $90,000 to pretend to be your family. Veronica sank into a chair, the wedding dress pooling around her. Oh God. I know about S. Morrison Financial Services. I know about the loans in your grandmother's name. I know about the $200,000 in debt. Please, she whispered. Please don't tell Dylan. Veronica, I have to tell him. You know I have to tell him. If you tell him, he'll leave me. And if he leaves me... She looked up at me, her face destroyed. I have nothing else. Nothing. No family, no money, no life. Dylan is all I have. My heart broke for her, because I understood. I understood building your entire existence around one person, one hope, one chance at a normal life. I understood being so desperate to be someone different that you destroy yourself trying. You have more than you think, I said gently. You have the chance to get clean, to build a real life, not one based on lies and pills. But you have to be willing to accept help. I don't need help. I just need Dylan. Dylan can't save you. Only you can save yourself. I learned that the hard way. She stood up, wiping her face with the back of her hand. You're going to tell him, aren't you? You're going to ruin everything. I'm going to tell him the truth. What he does with that truth is up to him. But Veronica, I'm also going to offer you something. What? I have a bed reserved for you at Desert Haven Treatment Center. 30-day program fully paid. If you want it. If you're willing to get help. She stared at me. Why would you do that? Because 12 years ago, someone gave me a chance when I didn't deserve it. Because you're sick, not evil. Because addiction is a disease, not a moral failing. And because if I don't help you, I'm just perpetuating the same shame and stigma that probably drove your mother to use in the first place. The boutique assistant returned with the pins. Veronica turned back to the mirror, her face a mask. Get out, she said quietly. Veronica, get out. This is my dress fitting. Mine. You're not welcome here. I left the boutique and sat in my car shaking. I'd tried. I'd offered help, offered compassion, offered a way out. She'd refused. Now I had to tell Dylan. I called Dylan from the parking lot. Hey, Mom, how was the fitting? Dylan, I need to talk to you, in person, right now. It's important. Something in my voice must have alarmed him. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm fine, but we need to talk about Veronica. Can you meet me at my house in an hour? Mom, I'm at work. Can't this wait until... No, it can't wait. Dylan, please. Trust me. This is important. There was a long pause. Okay, I'll tell my boss it's a family emergency. I'll be there in an hour. I drove home and weighted the folder on my coffee table. Frank's evidence, Sarah's research, all of it organized and ready. I made coffee I didn't drink. I paced. I practiced what I was going to say. How do you tell your child that the person they love is lying about everything? Dylan arrived at 4 o'clock, still wearing his work clothes, his face concerned. Mom, what's going on? You're scaring me. Sit down, sweetheart. He sat on my couch and I sat across from him, the folder between us. I need to tell you something about Veronica, and I need you to hear me out completely before you react. Can you do that? Mom, if this is about you not liking her. Dylan, please, just listen. I opened the folder and started from the beginning. I told him about my suspicions about hiring Sarah and Frank, about what they'd found. I showed him the evidence. The actor contracts the pharmacy records, the financial fraud, everything. He sat there in silence, his face growing paler with each revelation. When I finished, he just stared at the papers spread across the coffee table. Say something, I said softly. This can't be real. His voice was barely a whisper. This can't be real. Dylan, I'm so sorry, but it is. Her family, they're actors, all of them. Yes. And she's using pills like we did. Yes. He stood up, ran his hands through his hair, started pacing. No, you're lying. You made this up because you don't want me to be happy. Dylan, you're jealous. You're jealous that I found someone, that I'm moving on with my life. That's not true. Then why would you do this? He was crying now, angry tears streaming down his face. The wedding is in 10 days. 10 days, Mom. Which is why I'm telling you now, before you make a commitment you can't take back. I love her. I know you do. But Dylan, she's not who you think she is. She's sick. She's an addict living a lie. And if you marry her without knowing the truth, you'll be trapped in that lie with her. He sank back onto the couch, his head in his hands. I can't believe this. I can't believe any of this. I sat next to him, put my arm around his shoulders. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Why didn't she tell me about her mother, about the addiction, about any of it? Because she's ashamed. Because her grandmother told her she had bad blood and she believed it. Because she thought if you knew the truth, you wouldn't love her anymore. I would have understood. I'm in recovery too. I would have helped her. Maybe. But addiction makes us lie, Dylan. You know that. It makes us hide and pretend and build walls so high no one can see what we're really going through. He looked at the evidence spread across the table. What do? You call off the wedding, you tell her you know the truth, and then you offer her help if she's willing to accept it. And if she's not, then you walk away, because you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Trust me, I know. Dylan sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Finally, he picked up his phone. I need to talk to her, he said, right now. Do you want me to come with you? No, this is something I have to do alone. He stood up, gathered some of the evidence, and headed for the door. Then he stopped and turned back. Mom? Yes. Thank you for protecting me, even though it hurts like hell right now. Thank you. After he left, I sat in my living room and cried. For my son. For the wedding that wouldn't happen, for the woman drowning in addiction and lies. And then I called Sarah. It's done, I said. Dylan knows everything. He's going to talk to Veronica tonight. How did he take it? About as well as you'd expect. He's devastated. And the wedding? I don't know. He's going to talk to her. Maybe she'll come clean, call it off herself. Maybe she'll try to convince him the evidence is fake. I don't know. And if she doesn't call it off? I looked at the folder still sitting on my coffee table. The evidence that could destroy a wedding, a woman, a life. Then we'll be at that wedding with everything we have, and we'll stop it before Dylan makes the biggest mistake of his life. Dylan didn't call me that night, or the next day, or the day after that. 3 days of silence while I waited to hear what had happened, whether he'd talked to Veronica, whether the wedding was off. On the 4th day, my phone finally rang. Mom? Dylan's voice sounded hollow, exhausted. Sweetheart, are you okay? I talked to her. I showed her everything, the actor contracts, the pharmacy records, all of it. What did she say? She denied it at first, said you were making it up, that you were trying to sabotage us. But then I called the pharmacy, Mom. I called them and confirmed the prescriptions. And she broke down. My heart clenched. What happened? She admitted everything. The pills, the lies about her family, all of it. She said she was going to tell me after the wedding. She said she was going to get help. After the wedding. I know how that sounds. But Mom, she was so sorry. She cried for hours. She told me about her mother, about her grandmother, about how terrified she was that I'd see her as damaged goods. Dylan, what are you going to do? There was a long, painful pause. I'm going through with the wedding. My stomach dropped. What? I love her, Mom, and she's sick. You said it yourself, addiction is a disease. If I walk away now when she's at her lowest, what does that say about me? Dylan, you can't save her. She has to save herself. I'm not trying to save her. I'm trying to stand by her while she gets help. She's agreed to go to treatment right after the honeymoon. She's ready to get clean. Right after the honeymoon? I couldn't keep the skepticism out of my voice. Dylan, that's what addicts do. We promise we'll get help later after this one last thing, but later never comes. This is different. It's never different. Mom, I've made my decision. The wedding is happening. Veronica's family, the real people, not the actors, they're not coming. We're going to have a small, honest ceremony, just our real family and friends. What about the actors? She's canceled them, called them yesterday and told them not to come. And the financial fraud, the identity theft. She's going to make it right. She's going to pay back her grandmother, work out payment plans for the loans. She's going to fix everything. Dylan, Mom, I need you to support me on this. I need you to be at the wedding and be happy for me. Can you do that? I closed my eyes. If this is really what you want, it is, then I'll be there. But Dylan, promise me something. What? If she doesn't go to treatment after the honeymoon, if she keeps using, if any of this continues, promise me you'll leave. Promise me you won't sacrifice your own recovery trying to save hers. I promise. After we hung up, I called Frank immediately. He's going through with it, I said. The wedding is still on. Even knowing everything, she convinced him she'll get help after, that this is just a rough patch and she's ready to change. Frank sighed. Classic manipulation. She's buying time. I know, but he's an adult. I can't force him to call it off. What do you want to do? I thought about it. About my son marrying a woman who was actively committing fraud, actively lying. About the wedding happening in 6 days with or without my approval. I want you and Sarah at the wedding with all the evidence. If anything goes wrong, if she shows up high, if she causes a scene, if I see any sign that this is going to hurt Dylan, we expose everything. Publicly. Barbara, that's going to be nuclear. I know, but I'm not going to stand by and watch my son's life be destroyed. If she's serious about getting help, great. If not, I'll do whatever it takes to protect him. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect Arizona weather, sunny 75 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. The kind of day that made you believe good things were supposed to happen. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting the dress I'd bought for this occasion. Navy blue, elegant, appropriate. The same dress Veronica had once called off the rack when she thought I couldn't hear. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah at the venue. Everything's ready if needed. Another text from Frank. In position. Have all evidence prepared. And one from Dylan. Thanks for being here, Mom. Love you. I drove to Desert Ridge Country Club, my stomach in knots. The venue was beautiful manicured lawns, elegant ballroom, everything you'd want for a wedding. Except the bride was an addict, living a lie, and the groom was in denial. I found my seat. Table 12. Still in the back near the service entrance, exactly where Veronica had always planned to put me. The message was clear. You may have discovered my secrets, but you're still not welcome in my world. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 o'clock. At 3:30, guests began arriving. Dylan's friends from work, his colleagues, people from our recovery community who'd watched him rebuild his life. No Sterling family, of course. The actors had been canceled. But I noticed something else missing any sign of Veronica's real life. No friends from Ohio, no relatives except a single elderly woman I didn't recognize. No one from her past, from before she became Veronica Sterling. The woman was marrying my son, and she'd brought no one who actually knew her. At 3:45, I saw Veronica through a window. She was in the bridal suite, and even from a distance I could see her hands shaking as the makeup artist worked on her face. I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah, watch her closely. Something's not right. Sarah texted back, already on it. She's made 3 bathroom trips in the past hour. 4 o'clock arrived. The music started. The guests stood. And Veronica appeared at the end of the aisle in her perfect dress, looking like every bride's dream. Except I could see the signs no one else could see. The way her pupils were dilated despite the bright sunlight. The way she touched her nose every few steps. The slight unsteadiness in her walk. She was high. At her own wedding, she was high. Dylan stood at the altar looking at her with such love, such hope, such faith, that this was going to work out. And I knew right then in that moment that I couldn't let this happen. I sat in my seat at table 12, my hands gripping the edge of my chair so hard my knuckles turned white. Every instinct screamed at me to stand up, to stop this, to say something during the objection part of the ceremony. But I stayed silent. Because as much as I wanted to protect Dylan, he'd made his choice. He knew the truth, and he'd chosen to go forward anyway. If I stood up now, if I objected publicly, I wouldn't just be protecting him. I'd be taking away his agency, his right to make his own decisions, even his own mistakes. So I watched as the officiant, Pastor Mark Johnson from Dylan's Recovery Church, began the ceremony. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Dylan Hayes and Veronica Sterling in holy matrimony. Sterling. Even now she was using the fake name. Not Morrison, her real name, the name of the mother she'd lost and the grandmother she'd stolen from. She was marrying my son under a fabricated identity. Pastor Mark continued with the traditional words, talking about love and commitment and the sacred bond of marriage. Dylan was smiling, hopeful, believing that love could heal everything. Veronica was swaying slightly. I could see her from my seat, the way she kept blinking hard like she was trying to focus. The way her bouquet trembled in her hands. How many pills had she taken before walking down that aisle? Do you, Dylan James Hayes, take Veronica to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Dylan's voice was clear, certain, filled with love. And do you, Veronica Sterling, take Dylan to be your lawfully wedded husband? There was a pause. Just a small one, but I noticed it. Veronica's eyes flickered to me for just a second, a look of triumph mixed with something else. Fear, shame, I couldn't tell. I do, she said. If anyone objects to this union, speak now, or forever hold your peace." My heart pounded. Sarah, sitting 3 tables away, caught my eye. She raised her eyebrows, a question. "Should we?" I shook my head slightly. "Not yet." "Then by the power vested in me by the state of Arizona, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Dylan, you may kiss your bride." Dylan kissed her, and the guests applauded. It was done. My son was married to a woman living a lie. I clapped along with everyone else, my smile frozen on my face while my heart broke into pieces. The cocktail hour started at 5:30. The ballroom had been transformed: white tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, elaborate floral centerpieces that probably cost thousands of dollars. All paid for with money Veronica had borrowed fraudulently. I stood near the bar nursing a sparkling water, watching Veronica work the room. She was animated now, almost manic, touching people's arms, laughing too loudly, talking too fast. The pills had fully kicked in. Dylan stayed close to her, his hand on her lower back, steadying her when she stumbled in her heels. To everyone else, it probably looked like a groom being attentive. But I knew better. He was trying to keep her from falling apart. Sarah appeared at my elbow. "She's getting worse." I watched her go to the bathroom twice during cocktail hour. Came back more elevated each time. "Where's Frank?" "Stationed near the bride's preparation room. If she goes back there, he'll follow." An elderly woman approached me, the only person I didn't recognize from either Dylan's circle or the fabricated Sterling family. "Excuse me, are you Barbara Dylan's mother?" "I am," I said, shaking her hand. "I'm Harriet Morrison, Veronica's grandmother." My blood ran cold. "You came." "I received an invitation 2 days ago. Express mail. Very strange, considering Veronica and I haven't spoken in 3 years. She looked around the ballroom with obvious discomfort. "I almost didn't come, but I wanted to see for myself what kind of man would marry my granddaughter." "Did she know you were coming?" "I doubt it. I haven't told her I'm here yet." Harriet's eyes were sharp, assessing. "You know about Patricia, don't you? About what happened to my daughter?" "I do. I'm sorry for your loss. And you know that Veronica has the same tendencies." It wasn't a question. "I know she's struggling with addiction, yes." Harriet's mouth tightened. "Bad blood. I told her she had her mother's bad blood. Looks like I was right." I felt a surge of anger. "With all due respect, Mrs. Morrison, addiction isn't about bad blood. It's a disease. And the shame you put on your granddaughter probably contributed to her inability to ask for help." "I was trying to warn her, to keep her from ending up like Patricia." "You were teaching her to hate herself. There's a difference." Harriet's eyes flashed, but before she could respond, the wedding coordinator announced that dinner was being served and guests should take their seats. "Table 12, I said, looking at my place card. "Still in the back." "Table 3, Harriet said, looking at hers. She raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. The grandmother gets seated closer to the head table than the mother of the groom." It was a deliberate slight. Even on her wedding day, even knowing I knew the truth, Veronica couldn't resist the dig. I picked at my salmon, unable to eat. Around me, Dylan's cousins and recovery friends made polite conversation, unaware of the tension crackling through the air. At the head table, Dylan and Veronica sat with Dylan's best friend Chris and his wife, plus 2 of Dylan's work colleagues and their partners. No wedding party on Veronica's side, because she had no one. At 8 o'clock, the toasts began. Chris stood first, Dylan's best man. His speech was sweet and sincere, talking about their friendship, about Dylan's journey through recovery, about the strength it takes to rebuild your life. "Dylan showed me what real courage looks like," Chris said, "and I'm so happy he's found someone to share his life with." To Dylan and Veronica. Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine too, the champagne flute full of sparkling cider, and I drank to my son's happiness, even though I knew it was built on sand. Then Dylan stood to toast his bride. "Veronica," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "When I met you, I thought I'd never find someone who could understand me, who could see past my history and love me for who I am now. You've given me hope for the future. You've given me a reason to keep fighting, keep growing, keep becoming better. I love you. Here's to our future together." I watched Veronica's face as Dylan spoke. She was crying, mascara running down her cheeks, but something was off. The tears seemed performative somehow, like she was playing the role of the emotional bride rather than actually feeling it. Dylan sat down and there was a pause. Normally the bride would toast the groom next, but Veronica stayed seated, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Then she stood up, and I knew from the look on her face, from the set of her shoulders, from the way she gripped her champagne glass, that something bad was about to happen. "Thank you all for being here on the most perfect day of my life." Veronica began, her voice slightly slurred. "Dylan and I are so grateful for your love and support." She paused, took a long sip of champagne. Dylan reached for her hand, but she moved away slightly. "I especially want to thank our families for their guidance in bringing us together. Marriage, after all, is about joining two families, not just two people." Her eyes found mine across the room. There was something dark in them, something cruel. Of course, not all families are the same. Some have histories they're proud of. Others have complications they'd rather forget. A murmur went through the crowd. This wasn't typical wedding toast material. Dylan's mother, for example, has overcome significant challenges in her past. Addiction specifically. She said the word like it was dirty. Now I want to be clear, we don't judge people for their mistakes. Everyone deserves a second chance. But her tone said otherwise. Dylan stood up. "Veronica, maybe we should—" "No, honey, this needs to be said." She pulled away from him, addressing the room. "You see, Barbara has been very concerned about my background. She's asked questions, done research, even hired investigators to look into my family." Gasps around the room. People turned to stare at me. "She's questioned my family's business, my foundation work, my entire life. Because apparently people who come from her background can't understand people who come from mine." "Veronica, stop," Dylan said, his voice low and urgent. But she was on a roll now, the pills and the champagne and something darker fueling her words. "So I want to make something crystal clear to everyone here, especially to my new mother-in-law sitting in the back at table 12. She raised her glass toward me. "My family built their success through 3 generations of hard work, education, and ethical business practices. We didn't have to claw our way up from rock bottom because we never fell to rock bottom in the first place." The room was completely silent now. You could hear the air conditioning humming. "We understand that not everyone has been so fortunate, and we're willing to overlook certain deficiencies for Dylan's sake. But we will not tolerate disrespect from people who should be grateful just to be included in civilized society." My hands were shaking, but I kept my face neutral. I would not give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. "So while we welcome Dylan's mother into our extended family, we hope she understands that there are boundaries. Social boundaries, professional boundaries, and personal boundaries that people from our background simply cannot cross." She raised her champagne glass higher. "To new beginnings, high standards, and the importance of knowing your place in the world." Half the room raised their glasses, awkwardly uncertain. The other half sat in stunned silence. Dylan's face was bright red. "Veronica, sit down, now." But the damage was done. She'd just publicly humiliated me in front of 150 people, using my recovery, the thing I was most proud of, as a weapon. And in that moment, sitting at table 12 near the service entrance, I made my decision. I stood up slowly. The room turned to look at me. "Veronica," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. "That was quite a speech." "Thank you." She was smirking now, triumphant. "Very revealing," I said. Her smile faltered slightly. "I'd like to propose a toast of my own, if you don't mind." Dylan was shaking his head frantically, but I was already walking toward the front of the room. Sarah stood up from her table. Frank appeared from the doorway where he'd been standing. "Actually," I said, reaching the head table, "I'd like to toast your family. Your remarkable, accomplished, upstanding family." Veronica's face went pale. "But first, I think our guests would be interested in learning a little more about the people they're celebrating with tonight." I pulled out my phone. "Dr. Williams, would you mind joining us? I believe you have some information that might interest everyone." Sarah walked to the front of the room, carrying a manila folder. She set it on the head table and looked out at the 150 shocked guests. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Sarah Williams, Barbara's business partner at New Hope Recovery Centers. I'm also a licensed physician and former Stanford medical resident." Veronica was standing frozen, her champagne glass still raised. "This is highly inappropriate. This is our wedding reception." "You're absolutely right," I said. "A wedding reception should be about celebrating the union of two families. So let's talk about families, shall we?" Sarah opened her folder. 3 weeks ago, Barbara asked me to verify some information about Veronica's family background. As a medical professional with connections in Northern California, I have access to certain professional networks and databases. Stop this, Veronica said, but her voice was shaking. I couldn't find any record of Sterling properties in Northern California, Sarah continued. No business licenses, no development projects, no company matching the description given. So I dug deeper. She pulled out printed web pages. I found the Sterling Foundation website. It was created 7 months ago, right around the time Dylan and Veronica started dating. The content is plagiarized from 3 other charity websites. The photos are stock images. The testimonials are fabricated. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. That's a lie, Veronica said. These people are lying. Am I? Sarah pulled out her phone. Then perhaps you can explain why the domain registration for sterlingfoundation.org shows it was purchased on March 15th of this year using a credit card registered to Veronica Morrison. Morrison, someone in the crowd asked. Yes, Sarah said. Veronica's legal name is Veronica Morrison, not Sterling. Sterling is a name she adopted 5 years ago. Dylan sank into his chair, his head in his hands. He'd known about the fake foundation, about the name change, but hearing it exposed publicly was different. But the really interesting discovery, Sarah continued, came when I looked into the family members who attended the engagement party 4 months ago. She pulled out printed headshots. This man introduced himself as Richard Sterling, Veronica's father. His real name is Robert Patterson. He's a character actor represented by Prestige Acting Solutions in Los Angeles, specializing in distinguished corporate roles. She held up another photo. This woman claimed to be Margaret Sterling, Veronica's mother. Her real name is Linda Foster, also from Prestige Acting Solutions. Her specialty is playing elegant society matrons. The room erupted. People were pulling out their phones, probably Googling the names, the acting agency, everything. The entire Sterling family, Sarah said over the noise. All 6 of them were professional actors hired to portray Veronica's relatives. I have the contracts right here. She pulled out a thick stack of papers and began reading. Extended Family Portrayal Services. 6 actors. $1,500 per day per actor. 3 months of preparation and performance. Total cost approximately $90,000. Where did she get $90,000? Someone shouted. Frank stepped forward. That's where I come in. Frank Davis, licensed private investigator. The money came from fraudulent loans. He opened his own folder. Veronica Morrison has no employment history showing legitimate income for the past 3 years. She's been living on credit card advances and personal loans obtained through fraudulent financial statements. Stop it, Veronica screamed. All of you just stop. But Frank continued, his voice calm and professional. She claimed income from the Sterling Foundation, which doesn't exist. She used fake pay stubs to secure over $200,000 in loans from 15 different institutions. 200,000? Dylan's voice was barely a whisper. And that's not all, Frank said. Some of those loans were taken out using identity theft, specifically using her grandmother's information without consent. All eyes turned to Harriet Morrison, sitting at table 3. The old woman's face was stone. My grandmother, Veronica's voice cracked. Yes, Frank said. Harriet Morrison, age 76, residing in Autumn Care Nursing Home in Dayton, Ohio. Her credit score has been destroyed by loans she never applied for, all traced back to accounts opened by Veronica Morrison. Veronica was openly crying now, mascara streaming down her face. You don't understand. I was going to pay it back. I was going to fix everything. There's one more thing the guests should know, Frank said quietly. And I take no pleasure in this, but it's relevant to the situation. He pulled out pharmacy records. For the past 8 months, Veronica has been obtaining prescription medications from 4 different doctors under false pretenses. Doctor shopping, it's called. A form of prescription fraud. Dylan stood up, staring at Frank. What medications? OxyContin, Percocet, Adderall, Xanax. Over 180 pills in the past 2 months alone from 7 different pharmacies. The room was dead silent. That's not medication, Frank said. That's addiction. And then it happened. Veronica's purse sitting on the head table tipped over. Pills scattered across the white tablecloth, orange ones, white ones, blue ones, exactly as Frank had described. Multiple bottles rolled across the table, each labeled with a different doctor's name. The visual proof of everything we'd said spilling out for everyone to see. Someone gasped. Someone else started taking photos with their phone. Dylan stared at the pills, his face crumbling. Jesus Christ, Veronica. You brought drugs to our wedding. The confrontation. Veronica was gathering the pills with shaking hands, trying to shove them back into bottles, back into her purse, trying to hide what everyone had already seen. I needed them, she sobbed. The stress, the anxiety planning this wedding, I needed them. You needed them because you're an addict, I said quietly. I walked closer to her, my voice gentle now. Just like I was. Just like Dylan was. Just like your mother was. She looked up at me. Her perfect makeup destroyed her perfect dress, suddenly looking like a costume. How dare you mention my mother? I know about Patricia, they said. I know she died when you were 10. I know your grandmother told you that you had bad blood, that you'd end up just like her. And I know you've spent your entire adult life terrified that she was right. Stop it. But here's what your grandmother got wrong and what you need to understand. Your mother's addiction wasn't your fault. And yours isn't either. It's a disease, Veronica. A treatable disease. I'm not like her, Veronica whispered. I'm not. You're exactly like her. And you're exactly like me. And you're exactly like Dylan. We're all addicts, Veronica. But the difference is, we got help. We got clean. We built lives in recovery. I tried, she sobbed. I tried so hard to be different, to be better, to be someone who didn't have bad blood. There's no such thing as bad blood. There's just trauma and disease and the shame that keeps us sick. Dylan stood up, took off his wedding ring, and set it on the table next to the scattered pills. The symbolism was devastating. Dylan, no. Veronica reached for him. Please, I love you. I was going to get help after the honeymoon, I swear. That's what addicts say. Dylan said, his voice breaking. I should know. I've said it myself. After this one last thing, then I'll get help. But that day never comes unless someone forces it to come. Dylan, please. The wedding's off, he said quietly. The room was so silent you could hear the chandeliers tinkling in the air conditioning. Dylan, wait. Veronica was crying so hard she could barely speak. The wedding is off, he repeated louder this time. Everyone, I'm so sorry, but there's not going to be a marriage today. Guests started murmuring, some standing up, uncertain whether to leave or stay. The wedding coordinator stood frozen by the door, probably trying to figure out what to do about the band, the cake, the elaborate setup that was supposed to celebrate a marriage that was never going to happen. Harriet Morrison stood up from table 3 and walked toward us. She looked at her granddaughter with cold eyes. I told you, she said. I told you that you had your mother's blood. And now look at you, a drug addict and a thief, just like I always knew you'd be. Mrs. Morrison, I said sharply, that's enough. Excuse me. I said that's enough. You're right that Veronica has a disease, but you're wrong about everything else. She's not a drug addict because of bad blood. She's a drug addict because addiction is a disease, and because the shame you heaped on her made it impossible for her to ask for help. Harriet's face went red. How dare you? No, how dare you? Your daughter died of this disease, and instead of learning compassion, you taught your granddaughter to hate herself for being vulnerable to the same disease. You taught her that addiction was a moral failing instead of a medical condition. And that shame is probably what's kept her using. I turned to Veronica, who was still sobbing, still gathering pills with shaking hands. Veronica, listen to me. I have a bed reserved for you at Desert Haven Treatment Center. 30-day inpatient program. It's paid for. All you have to do is say yes. She looked up at me, her face destroyed. Why would you help me after everything I've done? Because 12 years ago someone helped me when I didn't deserve it. Because you're sick, not evil. Because addiction is a disease, not a character flaw. And because if I don't help you, I'm just perpetuating the same cycle of shame that killed your mother. I don't deserve help. Nobody deserves help. That's not how it works. You just need it, and it's available, and all you have to do is accept it. Pastor Mark stepped forward. Veronica, I've watched addiction destroy many families, but I've also watched recovery heal them. Please let these people help you. Veronica looked around the ballroom at the 150 guests staring at her, at the pills scattered across the table at the wedding that would never be, at the grandmother who hated her, and the mother-in-law who was offering her mercy she didn't understand. Okay, she whispered finally. Okay, I'll go. I'll get help. Sarah immediately pulled out her phone. I'm calling Desert Haven now. They're expecting you. Frank approached with his business card. The state pharmacy board is building a case. You need a lawyer. I can recommend someone who specializes in drug-related offenses. If you go to treatment voluntarily, if you cooperate fully, the charges might be reduced. Charges? Veronica's voice was small, childlike. Doctor shopping and prescription fraud are felonies in Arizona, but treatment restitution and cooperation could mean probation instead of prison time. She nodded numbly like she was in shock. Dylan stood there watching all of this, tears streaming down his face. I went to him and pulled him into a hug. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." "You saved me, Mom," he said against my shoulder. "If you hadn't exposed this, I would have married her. And when she got arrested, I would have been dragged into it too." "I know." "How did you know?" "How did you know she was lying about everything?" "Because I've been there," I said. "I know what addiction looks like. I know what shame looks like. I know what lying looks like because I did all of it myself 12 years ago." We stood there, mother and son, while around us the reception dissolved. Guests were leaving, the band was packing up the wedding, coordinator was on the phone, probably trying to figure out refunds and cancellations. Veronica sat at the head table surrounded by scattered pills and broken dreams, waiting for Sarah to finish calling Desert Haven. And I thought about recovery, about how it's not linear, not simple, not easy, about how sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the truth, even when the truth destroys everything. About how sometimes you have to let people fall all the way down before they can start climbing back up. 3 months later, I sat in my office at New Hope Recovery Center, looking at a letter that had arrived that morning. It was from Veronica, written from Desert Haven. "Dear Barbara, I'm writing this from treatment where I've been for 90 days. I've completed the 30-day program and voluntarily extended for another 60 because I'm finally ready to do the work. I don't expect forgiveness from you or Dylan. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you saved my life. If you hadn't exposed me at the wedding, I would have kept using until I overdosed just like my mother did. In treatment, I've learned that my mother's addiction wasn't my fault, and mine isn't either, but my recovery is my responsibility. For the first time in my life, I'm taking responsibility for my actions and my disease. The legal consequences are significant. I'm facing probation, restitution, community service. My grandmother isn't pressing charges for the identity theft, but only because I've agreed to repay every cent and never contact her again. I've lost everything, Dylan, the fake life I built, even my freedom for a while. But I've gained something more valuable: honesty. The chance to live as Veronica Morrison instead of Veronica Sterling. To be who I actually am instead of who I thought I needed to be. Rock bottom was the greatest gift anyone ever gave me. Thank you for caring enough to let me fall. In recovery, Veronica Morrison. I set the letter down and looked out my window at the clients walking to group therapy. Real people fighting real battles. My phone rang. Dylan. "Hey, sweetheart, how are you?" "Good, Mom. Really good, actually. I'm at an Al-Anon meeting, learning about boundaries and codependency." "I'm proud of you." "I'm dating someone new. Emma. She's a teacher. We met at a recovery event." "When do I get to meet her?" "Sunday dinner, our tradition." I smiled. I wouldn't miss it. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about the wedding that wasn't the truth that destroyed everything, the recovery that might save a life. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is expose the lies. Sometimes rock bottom is a gift. And sometimes the perfect lie has to shatter before the real healing can begin.